Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be ranking the Super Sentai teams, and it's going to be Jetman to Boonboomger, because those are the only seasons I've seen, and Boonboomger hasn't ended yet, but I have a pretty good idea about how I like the team, so I'll include them. And this isn't a video about how I like the season in general, this is just about the characters. So I'll be considering the core 3 or 5, plus a 6th ranger, plus any additional rangers, like the Gokaigers from Hurricaneger, and I won't be considering extra ranger or extra heroes, like Wolzard Fire from Magiranger or Stay Caesar from Gokaiger. I'll also be considering the Lupinrangers and the Patrangers as 2 separate teams. So yeah, without further ado, this is my ranking of the Super Sentai teams from Jetman to Boonboomger. Starting off in last place at number 35 is the Rangers, and this wasn't even close. The Rangers are just such boring characters, and they really don't have any defining characteristics among themselves. And the most interesting of them is Riki, who's King Ranger, and he just disappears for really long stretches, even during important plot moments, and just doesn't really do anything. And I like Juri, but as a character, I don't think she's that good. So the Rangers are just the worst team in the seasons that I've seen. At number 34 is the Gokaigers. They're also just very boring characters. I think that a thing that is really weird with them is that they call each other by their color, and I just never really understood that because it never really leads to anything. Like, they're the same at the beginning as they are at the end. They don't really grow, and they're just boring characters overall. And even the characters in Wild Force are very similar to the Gokaigers, but all they did was make the Red Ranger have a connection to the main villain. That's made them 10 times better. Really sucks because I really like Wild Force, and the characters that they're based on are not that good. Number 33 is the Rangers, and they're very similar to the Rangers and the Gokaigers. They're just pretty boring characters, but I think they're better because there's at least something with Geki and Barai that's interesting, and I like Goshi. Pretty much beside Geki and Goshi, the other 3 Rangers are boring, and Barai just doesn't really do anything besides summon Dragon Caesar after he becomes good, but he is really cool when he's evil, so that's enough to keep them out of last place. At number 32 is the Gokaigers. They're a pretty lame team. I feel like all 5 of the Gokaigers are kind of annoying in their own ways, except for Hyde, who's pretty cool, but they're also just boring characters. I think Alta is a whatever character, but he has a lot of cool moments, but his personality is just lame. And then Eri, Monet, and Agri just don't really get much focus and are honestly just pretty bad characters. Gosei Knight is definitely the best. He has a really cool personality and has an interesting conflict with the Gokaigers. So overall, they're just kind of carried by Gosei Knight, and they're just pretty boring if you take him out. At number 31 is the Ninjers. And as characters, they're really bad. I would say the only good character and the one I really only care about is Kasumi, and all the other ones are kind of just entertaining, except for Nagi, who is a really bad character. He's really boring, probably the most boring character in all of Sentai. But the other 3 have funny moments, so that kind of evens out how bad of a character they are with their entertaining moments, especially with Takaharu, who is really annoying but at the same time has some really funny moments. And near the end, I actually kind of like him, so he's a fine enough character, and Yakumo and Fuka are fine. And I really like Kinji as Star Ninja, but he isn't as cool as I remember when I first saw Ninja, but he still has some pretty cool moments. So overall, I like them, but as characters, they're not good. Number 30 is the Rangers. I've said this in every one of my Ranger color tier rankings when I get to the Rangers. They just all feel like the same character. They're just a vessel for goofy shenanigans. They aren't really characters, but I like all of them, and all the wacky stuff they do is fun, but as characters, they aren't that great. Number 29 is the ToQgers. They're another strange team. If you just look at the Ju-men, they're definitely in the bottom 30. Their life in Ju-land is never really brought up or anything, and they're mostly just generic stereotypes, although they're fine enough. But then you have Yamato, who is a great Red Ranger and heavily carries this team. He's just a really interesting backstory and is just a really good Red Ranger. And then on the other hand, you have Misao, who is the absolute worst 6th Ranger in all of Sentai and is just so annoying, and I hate his bit about him getting down on himself. So it's just a very strange team with the quality of the team all over the place, but Yamato definitely carries them a bunch. Number 28 is the Gingamen. I always saw the Gingamen as just an improved version of the Jirangers, which is basically what they are. Ryoma has an interesting thing with his brother, but it isn't really brought up as much as I would hope. I really like Goki. He's a really wholesome character and just has a lot of funny moments. But then you have characters like Hikaru and Saya who are just really boring and basically just the same character. And Hayate is just kind of boring and doesn't really do anything. And I like Kuuga as the Black Knight, but he just feels too similar to Ryoma, and like I said earlier, there's not really anything done with Ryoma and him competing over Gingared because he was originally chosen as Gingared, but that doesn't really matter as a team. I think they're alright. Number 27 is the Patrangers, and this really sucks because I feel like it's not entirely the character's fault that they're bad. It's the circumstances in the season that they're given, where they're basically just the B team to the Lupinrangers. They're pretty much made to look like idiots and just comic relief for almost the entire season, and I just don't think they're as interesting as the Lupinrangers. I like Keiichiro and Tsukasa, but Sakuya is one of my least favorite Green Rangers, and he's just really annoying. And I just feel like Noel doesn't really fit the team. He just is a Lupin Ranger character that is also working for the Patrangers, so he just doesn't really fit with them, and I feel like he doesn't really get that much opportunities to interact with them anyway. So it's a shame, because I feel like if they were more even, then the season would be even better than it already is. Number 26 is the Zenkaigers. They're kind of similar to the Car Rangers, but they actually have kind of substance to them, at least with Kaito. Even though he has a personality that I don't really like, I think it works with this team, and I like Juran and Majin, but Vroom and Gawan are just terrible, and I really don't like them. But Zox is also a really great character, and he's one of my favorite Six Rangers. I think he has a great personality and a lot of funny moments. So I think they're a pretty good team overall. Number 25 is the Gekirangers, and I feel like this is the biggest letdown of all the teams because I feel like they really hold down the season. John is my least favorite Red Ranger. I just hate the way he speaks. I think he's really annoying. I like Retsu, but he's also kind of boring, and Ran is also pretty boring. And Go is also kind of boring, doesn't really do anything, even though I feel like it would be cool if he got some more moments of threats, but he's just kind of boring. And I really like Ken. He's definitely the best Geki Ranger. I really like his personality. I think he's pretty funny, but he just doesn't get that much to do. So it just sucks. Because in a season that has as good a story as Geki Ranger, I feel like they're heavily held back by their characters. Number 24 is the Kiramagers. They're a pretty good team overall. I really don't like Juru's personality, but I can see why people would like him. In the final 15 episodes, he definitely gets better. The other main four are really good. I just really like Tamatomo and Shigeru and Sayo. I don't really care about Senna that much. But Takamichi is also a kind of boring Six Ranger, very generic, but is has an interesting connection to Crystalia, so I guess that's something. But I really think it's Juru that holds this team back. Even though he does have his moments, I just don't really like him. But overall, they're a pretty good team. Number 23 is the Boonboomgers, and they're just kind of a baseline good team. I was really hoping a lot more would be done with their characters, but really nothing has really been done with them. I like that Taya is finally a mostly normal person as a Red Ranger after so many years of crazy whack jobs as Red Rangers, but he's just kind of a generic Red Ranger. And that's kind of the same with all of the characters. They're just kind of generic. Like Amira's a generic pink. Chashiro's a generic serious blue type. I really don't like Joe. I think he's my least favorite Black Ranger. And I was really hoping Gemba's backstory would make him a better character, but it really ended up not really leading into anything. But I still think he's a pretty good character and I like him. But I think the biggest missed potential is with Sakito. He just doesn't feel like he's part of the team. He could have been a rival like Timefire, but he just joins the team after 2 episodes and then he's kind of like off doing his own thing with Bundi. I feel like in every episode, he never does like a lineup with the Boonboomgers. He's off doing his own thing while the Boonboomgers get to do the cool fight, so he just doesn't feel like part of the team. But I like his personality, so I just wish he had more focus. But they're just a fine team overall, but not as good as I was hoping they would become. Number 22 is the Magirangers. And the thing I like most about them is that they're not perfect characters. They have flaws, and they actually feel like high school students. I really like Kenta. I think he grows into the leader role as the season goes along. I think Koichiro and Shun are pretty boring characters though. Although Chisato and Miko are pretty good and I like them. But my favorite is definitely Yusaku, who's one of my favorite Six Rangers and was my favorite Six Ranger for a really long time. He just has a really cool personality and does a lot of cool things, but he also can relate to the other Magirangers despite being older than them, and he's kind of childlike. So this is just a pretty good team overall. Number 21 is the Magirangers. I like the idea of a team that's all siblings, but I don't think the Magirangers are executed that well. I think that Kai could have had a really interesting arc throughout the season of differentiating recklessness from courage, but that's pretty much just in the first episode, and then that's done with. Tsubasa, Urara, and Hoka are all just boring characters, and Hoka is one of my least favorite Pink Rangers, and she's just really annoying. But Makito is definitely really good. He's probably my favorite Green Ranger, and he just really fits the big brother role. A lot like Matoi from Go-Go 5, but I like him more than Matoi. But I just feel like they don't feel as much like family like Go-Go 5, and I'll talk about that when I talk about Go-Go 5, but I just don't feel it as much for whatever reason. I think part of that is just Magishine. He doesn't really fit the rest of the team. He's just kind of weird addition, although I think he is cool when he actually gets to do things. But overall, I still think they're a good team and have plenty of good moments. Number 20 is Go-Go 5. And like I said earlier, I like them more than Magiranger just because they feel more like a family. I feel like they have better interactions with each other. I like Matoi as the big brother. He's kind of annoying, but at the same time, he can just be funny and has good interactions. I really like Matsuri. I think she's one of my favorite Pink Rangers. Nagare is whatever. And I really like Sho. I think he's really funny. Daimon is definitely the most annoying, but he has his moments too. And I feel like the whole is better than the sum of their parts in this instance. They're just really good as a team together, and that's why I like them. Number 19 is the Jetman. This might be bias because Jetman was really the season that got me hooked into Sentai, but I also think the characters are pretty good. Although Guy definitely boosted them up a lot. I think Ryu is a pretty good Red Ranger, but he's also very over-dramatic. Really, him and Guy are really the only two characters that have any growth throughout the season. The other three are just kind of stagnant throughout. Like, I don't really care about Kaori, but she's fine. I like Akko, but she doesn't really do anything. Raita doesn't really do anything either, but he has a good relationship with Kaori. It's mostly just Guy. I think he's really cool. He's definitely the best Black Ranger and basically the template for every Black Ranger since. And that's pretty much why they're this high, when without him they probably would be in the bottom 25. Number 18 is the Die Rangers. And they're a really good team. They're definitely held back by Ko, who's one of the worst 6 Rangers. He's just an annoying little kid. But thankfully he isn't around that much, like most 6 Rangers of his time. And I just like that in Die Ranger, each of the characters get their own relationship separate from the main plot, so their personalities really get to shine. Although I feel like with Kazu, he got the short end of the stick, where he just got paired with a random filler character in Cameo, while the other characters got pretty interesting relationships. But overall, I think they're good characters. They're not really too deep, but I just like their personalities, so they're a good team. Number 17 is the Kakurangers. They're a lot like the Die Rangers. They aren't really that deep, but I just like them more because they have a little bit more personality and are definitely funnier. Saizo can be really annoying, but is also really funny. Sekai is kind of just the other comic relief character. I don't really care about Tsuruhime, but she's the only character that really gets any story devoted to her, and I don't really care about that, but it's still cool that she got it. And Sasuke is just a pretty generic 90s Red Ranger, but the best is definitely Jiraiya. I think he's awesome. He's a way better American Ninja than Star Ninja, and just has a lot of funny moments, although I wish he definitely got more focus. So overall, they're just a very likable team. Number 16 is the Deca Rangers. They're a really good assortment of characters. Like Bon is a very hot-headed Red Ranger who can be annoying, but he has some cool moments here and there, but it's mostly funny or annoying. Oji is a very serious Blue Ranger, but he has a really good relationship with Bon. I think that's really wholesome. Sen is definitely my favorite. He's usually just the cool, comic-collected guy, but when he gets serious, he's completely different. Jasmine is my favorite Yellow Ranger. I just really like her Esper powers. That's cool. And she has a cool personality. Umiko is probably my least favorite. She's just a generic Pink Ranger. It also just has a single joke that she uses all the time. And Tetsu is just a boring 6 Ranger. So yeah, I think they're a pretty good assortment overall, but Jasmine and Sen really carry them. Number 15 is the Ryu Soldiers. They're a pretty hard team for me to pin down. I really like Asuna. She's my favorite Pink Ranger. She just has a great performance, and I really like her personality. I like Ko. He's a pretty generic Red Ranger, but he's likable enough. And I like Melto. He has some cool moments, but also can be funny. But Toa is a really bad character. He just falls around Bomba, and that's basically his whole personality. And Bomba is a really cool character, probably one of the coolest in all Sentai. And Kanalo is just a really mediocre 6 Ranger. He pretty much is just a bit character. His bit about being rejected is funny once in a while, but all the time it just gets old. So really, Kanalo and Toa really hold his team back, because the rest of them are pretty good. And number 14 is the Hurricanegers. I just really like the core three. They're all kind of the same personality, but I just really like that. They're not perfect, and they're just really likable. The Gokaigers aren't that interesting as characters. Kabutoranger is definitely cooler. They have some cool moments in the story, but as characters aren't that great. But Hurricaneger is definitely the best. He just has a really interesting personality and has a lot of funny quips and stuff like that. And I just really like him. His introduction really made Hurricaneger a lot better. But overall, as a whole team, I think they're all great. Number 13 is the Lupinrangers. They have a really interesting motivation. Kairi has an interesting personality as someone who's outwardly very snarky, but inwardly is just desperate to get his brother back. Toma and Umika are kind of boring. Toma's just kind of a straight man, basically, and Umika is just a generic female Sentai character. Kairi definitely carries them a lot. But I also like Noel, especially with the Lupinrangers, because he fits a lot better, as his entire backstory is tied to them, even if it isn't used that much. I just like them as a whole a lot better than the Patrangers, and if the Patrangers were equal to the Lupinrangers, then it would have been awesome. But as it is, I really like the Lupinrangers. They're definitely the best part of that season. Number 12 is the Time Rangers, and they're just a very solid team. Tatsuya is a pretty generic 90s Red Ranger, but I like his message about carving your own fate, and I feel like his relationship with Yuri is definitely the most believable in Sentai. I didn't really like Ayase at first. I thought he was kind of an asshole, but thinking back on it, I think he's a pretty good character and is a good change of pace. Domon is definitely my favorite of the Time Rangers. I just really like his personality. He's just a dumb meathead, but also really cares about his team. Shion is definitely the worst. He's just kind of boring, and I don't really remember anything from him. But Timefire is also a really cool Sixth Ranger in that he never really joins the team. He's more of a rival, but he's still not a villain. And that's just an interesting perspective because it pretty much hasn't been done since. So overall, it's just a very solid team. Number 11 is the Q Rangers. Funnily enough, I feel like if this was a normal 6-man team, this could have been one of the best. If it was Lucky, Champ, Stinger, Balance, Hammy, or Raptor, and Tsurugi. But as it is, I feel like a lot of the team just feels like filler, which sucks because, like the characters I said before, really with the exception of Hammy and Raptor, they're really good. I really like Lucky. He's one of my favorite Red Rangers. I love his optimism, and his catchphrase is really good. Singer and Champ have a really good relationship, and they just have interesting backstories that are connected. Balance is just a funny character. Even if he doesn't get much story devoted to him, he's still cool. Just all the other characters are just kind of whatever. Like Nagare gets pretty good focus, but I just think he's a boring character and is kind of just one note. And then Spada, Hammy, and Raptor just don't get enough focus. And Garo is my least favorite Blue Ranger of all time, just because he just follows around Lucky, and that's basically his personality. Koguma Sky Blue is not as annoying as I thought he would be, but he's still an unnecessary addition. I like Shorampo. I think he's a good commander ranger. And Tsurugi is one of my favorite 6 rangers. I just love his personality, how it clashes with Lucky. And like I said earlier, if this was a traditional 6-man team, it would have been probably top 5. But as it is, because it's bloated to 12, it really hurts its stock. But it's a testament to how good the characters still are, because it's still this high. Number 10 is Boukenger. This is just a really great team. Akashi is one of my favorite Red Rangers. He's kind of the peak fearless leader and just has a lot of cool moments, but also has some funny moments because of how cool he can be. But the other Bookenders are pretty good. Sakura is one of my favorite Pink Rangers. I just like how she isn't a generic girly girl stereotype like they usually are. Sota is funny, but not that remarkable. I like Boken Black's rivalry with Akashi, but it's not incredible. And Natsuki is just really annoying. I think she's the one that really holds back the team. Even though her backstory is pretty interesting, just her personality is really annoying. Although she has a good relationship with Boken Black. Eiji is just a great 6 ranger. I really like his personality, how his arrogance clashes with the rest of the Bokengers. And he just has a lot of good moments with Akashi and also has an interesting backstory. So overall, it's just a great team. Number 9 is the Goangers. As characters, I wouldn't say they're great, but just the idea about them, that they're mostly just normal people that want to fight evil, and that's just a really good message for me. Like, none of them are really trained fighters, except for the Goan Wings, but I just really like the personality. Like, Sosuke acts like a guy who's way cooler than he actually is, and that just leads to funny moments. And Ren is just the mother of the team, even though he's a Blue Ranger, so that's funny. Saki is kind of a generic character, but she's still funny. Same thing with Haunt. I don't think he's that great. But Gunpei is a great subversion of the cool black stereotype where he tries to act cool and says he's a cool undercover cop when he's just a regular cop, and more often than not makes himself look really uncool. So that's funny. And the Go-On Wings are just the perfect foil to them because they're actually trained to fight evil, whereas the Go-Oners are just regular people. So that's really cool. But over time, they eventually become as goofy as the other Go-Oners. So I just really like them overall. They're one of my favorite teams. Number 8 is the ToQgers. They're a great team. They just have a naivete to them, but that makes sense because they're supposed to be children in adults' bodies. And I just like pretty much all of them, especially Tokachi, although Kagura can be kind of annoying sometimes, but she's still tolerable. But the best of them is definitely Akira. He's my favorite 6th Ranger, and is just a great big brother to the ToQgers, and also has a good arc throughout the season about valuing his life. So they're just a great team overall, and one of the reasons why I like ToQger so much. Number 7 is the Shinkengers. This is a really great team. I think they're definitely carried a little bit by Takeru, who's one of the best Red Rangers and just has a great backstory, probably the best in all of Sentai. And I just really like his personality being different from most Reds, as he's mostly a stoic and serious type, but over the course of the season he grows closer to his team members. The rest of the core team, I don't think they're too interesting, but I still like them. I like Chiaki, Ryunosuke is good comic relief, Kota is kind of boring, and also like Maki as like the mother figure of the team. But I really think Genta is a great character. He's a really good counterpart to Takeru as this crazy goofball, but is also friends with Takeru, so he kind of puts him on the course of growing closer to his team. So I think it's just a great team and one of the best in all Sentai. Number 6 is the Abarangers. The core 3 are pretty good, but the 2 additional Rangers are definitely what makes this team great. Yoga is a really good leader for the team, as he's the most optimistic person ever. I like Ranru as she doesn't really fit into any stereotypes. And Yukato is probably my least favorite, but he still has some cool moments. Asuka is definitely my favorite Black Ranger, and he just has a really cool story, and I like him as the mentor for the team. But Mikoto is definitely the best character in the season, as just a completely evil 6th Ranger for pretty much the entire season. He's basically the main villain for a good chunk of the season. And even though I don't really like his redemption, I still think it's fine because he only fought with the Abarangers on like one occasion, then had to sacrifice himself, so I think it evens out. And overall, I think this is just a great team. Number 5 is the King-Ogers, and this might be a little recency bias because King-Ogers still just ended only a year ago, but they're just such a good team. Even with Gira, who I don't like that much, especially in the first chapter when he was terrible. But the second chapter really mellowed him out, even though he still did a stupid Tyrant King bit. He definitely was a better character in the second chapter. But just the rest of the team is great. Himeno is definitely not as interesting, but I still like her. Yanma is one of my favorite Blue Rangers as just a no-nonsense type guy, and calling everyone slack-jawed Tanuki. But also a guy who came from nothing to become king. That's a really cool backstory. Rita is a great character. I just like how they can be a badass, but also have funny moments. And Kaguragi is definitely my favorite as just a very aloof personality. He's willing to do anything for the betterment of his country, even though his betrayal stuff kind of rang hollow because you knew he was never really going to betray them. It was still cool, and he's my favorite of the team. And just Jeremy, he's the best 6th Ranger we've gotten in a while, even though he doesn't get too much focus and really missed opportunity that we don't really focus on Bugnarok that much in the second act. He's still a great character and gets more focus in the second act, just compared to the other 6 Rangers that we've got recently. Pretty much besides ToQger, he's the only one that I would say is a good character. And as a whole, I just really like the team. They're just a really good fit for the season. Number 4 is the Go Busters. I just really like this team. They're one of the best. Even with Yoko, who I don't think is a great character, just the other characters are so good. Hiromo is a great Red Ranger as kind of an asshole at first, but over time he learns to be less blunt and becomes a good leader. And Ryuji is one of the best Blue Rangers. He isn't really a nerd stereotype or a stoic, serious type. He's just a good mentor for the other 2 Go Busters, and also has a lot of good moments with Jin. Jin and Jay are definitely the best duo in all of Sentai. I just really like their interactions. They're really funny, especially Jay, who just has overconfidence in himself and that leads to funny moments, but also has some funny deadpan delivery. Yeah, they're just a really awesome team. Number 3 is the Kyoryugers, and I wouldn't say they're great characters, but I just really like their personality, and you really can't not like them. I didn't really like Daigo when I first saw Kyoryuger, but after rewatching it, he's one of my favorite Reds, and I like him a lot, even if he is a little overpowered. Nobuharu is my favorite Blue Ranger. I just like his funny puns and that he's an older guy. Amy is kind of a generic Pink Ranger, but she has some good moments. Ian is kind of a generic Black Ranger as a womanizer, but he also has a good personality and some good moments. Soji is kind of boring, but definitely near the end when he gets Torrid Sword. That's pretty cool stuff. Inuchi is one of my favorite 6 Rangers, as he can be badass, but also can be funny. So it's just a great team. Even if they're not the deepest team, they just are really good, and for whatever reason, I just like them a lot. Number 2 is the Gokaigers, and this is such a great team, and was my favorite for a really long time. I just think as a whole, the best part about them is that at the beginning of the season, they really don't care about Earth, and are just here for the treasure, but over time, they accept their fate as a 35th Sentai, and use the biggest treasure in the universe to save Earth, so that's good development. But the characters themselves are just so good. Captain Marvelous is the best character in all of Sentai, he's just so cool. Joe and Luca are good pirates. And Dawn and I are interesting in that they're not really pirates and kind of have to rein Marvelous, Luca, and Joe in. And Guy kinda isn't as good, but he's still fine. I like that he's a Sentai fanboy, and in an anniversary season that works. But he's just not as good as the other ones, although that's a high bar to cross. So overall, they're just incredible characters and are one of the best parts of the best season in Sentai. Coming in at number 1 is the Dawn Brothers. They're just such a good team, which is funny because they don't even team up all the way until episode 44. And it just works so well because the season is built around the characters, more so than any other season. Like, I really like Taro. He's a good inversion of the stereotype of the good at everything Red, where because he's so good at everything and he's kind of arrogant, he doesn't have any friends. And Haruka is the best Yellow Ranger. It just has a lot of really funny reactions to all the crazy things that happen. Saruhara has some funny moments, and he doesn't really believe in money, he just says haikus all the time. Kijuno is one of the most interesting characters in all of Sentai, as a guy who is overprotective of his wife and then kind of becomes a crazy person when she goes missing, and is a villain from Tsubasa's point of view. And Tsubasa is also really funny, as it's just funny that he's the badass Black Ranger, but his Ranger form is just a little dog. That's funny. What almost kicks us out of first place is Jiro. He's just one of the worst 6 Rangers and really doesn't do anything at all in the show, but the other characters are so good that he can just be ignored. So they're just great. They have incredible interactions with each other. Definitely the best in all of Sentai, and that makes them the best team, in my opinion. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As for our next videos, I don't really have a plan, at least in the immediate future. I am planning on making a video on Boonboomger when that ends, but that's still like 2 months away. And after Boonboomger ends, I'll probably end up doing a video on ranking all the seasons of Sentai that I've seen. I still want to make more videos on Kamen Rider, but I don't really know what I would do on that. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feedback is always appreciated. Have a great day.